10 years ago marked the debut of the WWE Network, one of the greatest tools for wrestling fans everywhere. However, we've marked this occasion with, well, nothing. And there are suspected rumors that WWE might just be taking the network down permanently come next year. And so I decided that it's high time to celebrate this for the awesomeness that it is. And that's exactly why it's the topic of this episode, because this is the history of the WWE Network. I want to give a big thank you to all my amazing Patreon supporters such as Ron Hawthorne, Mangy Stray, Dakari Garment, Mr. J, and The Reflection of Perfection. Thank you for all your support as you're helping to keep this channel going, and all of you can help as well by signing up on my Patreon page. Let's go back to the year 2000, where everything for the WWE Network started with a lawsuit. And it would also start with another network, the USA Network, who filed against the World Wrestling Federation due to what they deemed as a breach of contract, when they saw WWF programming moving to their old owner of Viacom and their networks, TNN and MTV. Although these legal efforts were all for naught, as the Delaware Chancery Court ruled in favor of the World Wrestling Federation in June of 2000, as it was revealed through testimony that then WWF CEO at the time, Linda McMahon, stated that the company was actually trying to start their own cable channel, and that before the deal with Viacom was ever struck, WWF actually sought to acquire USA's Sci-Fi channel in order to reformat it as a brand new wrestling channel. As it turns out, USA rejected the idea, but Barry Baker, USA Network's then president, encouraged Linda to seek other opportunities, as he was stated to have said, "I can tell you right now, Linda, you're not going to get anybody to give you a network." This was a quote directly from Linda McMahon in her testimony. Now, of course, as we know now, Sci-Fi would eventually host wrestling with the WWE's version of ECW, and Monday Night Raw would return to the USA Network in 2005. Although, nevertheless, the idea of WWE getting their own network was still something that was brewing. After all, if Ted Turner could start himself a wrestling promotion, why can't Vince McMahon start a cable channel? But staying on target, WWE would get one. It just wouldn't happen the way that anyone was expecting. However, we were looking at a brand new digital age. Now, before WWE returned to the USA Network in 2005, just a year prior, they would create their very own on-demand video service, called WWE Classics On Demand. And this would be the precursor to what we know as the WWE Network, as it would primarily feature content from WWE's vast array of archival footage. But after acquiring the assets from both WCW and ECW, WWE got to add all of their content together with their own. Now, it was originally called WWE 24/7 On Demand. It would get a name change in April of 2009. Now, at first, this was only available on digital cable, and by November of 2007, 3 years after its launch, the service had 115,000 subscribers, which would just be a mere fraction of what the network would eventually get. And speaking of which, it would be the advent of the WWE Network that would take down WWE Classics On Demand. Before the streaming wars ever got started, some would argue that WWE was the company that fired the first shot. Sure, there were Netflix and Hulu's and other streaming services out there beforehand, but it was WWE that really decided to crack the market when it came to specialty streaming services. Although that's really not all that surprising, because when you look at cable television and pay-per-view, WWE has always been ahead of the curve. In September of 2011, WWE finally let it be known that they were looking to create their very own streaming service, especially seeing how well WWE-related content was doing on Netflix. As a result, they would conduct a survey of their own to see if there would be people who would pay for a premium service that carried just wrestling content. And they also wanted everyone to know that they would also get pay-per-views with no additional cost, as well as repeats of old Monday Night Raws and SmackDowns, plus loads of other archival footage that WWE had acquired to their tape library, as well as all those fine WWE films they have, not to mention original programming too. And needless to say, the results of the survey were very encouraging. And so, the original plan was to have the network launch alongside WrestleMania 28 in April of 2012. And that didn't really go so well. As it turns out, having a streaming platform is not exactly easy to do. And at first, in order to encourage the launch of this, WWE had a countdown clock on their website, which was suddenly removed without any fanfare. And so now, it seemed like the future of the WWE Network was in jeopardy, which was a real shame since one of their original programs, WWE's Legends House, had already been filmed. And so, in 2013, WWE pivoted to try and make their network a premium pay TV outlet, with the price of $15 a month. But then, in the beginning of the following year, on January 8th, at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, WWE surprisingly revealed that they were going ahead with the WWE streaming service, and it would be available at the more familiar price of $9.99, which was even lower than what they originally had projected. Classics on Demand would close, and a free trial period was offered at the week of launch. And as promised, the network would host archival footage from WCW, ECW, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the AWA, and Jim Crockett Promotions, along with loads of other content from WWE's vast library. And side note, the logo that was originally used for the network eventually became WWE's standard logo. And for many fans, this was an absolute dream come true. So many things that we never thought were possible were all happening at once. Not only were we getting all the stuff we loved, but we were also getting pay-per-views. And not to mention that Chris Benoit had mostly been persona non grata, but we were relieved to hear that he wasn't going to be removed from anything, and that we could finally watch Benoit matches again. Just a few months later, and the New York Times would herald that the WWE had positioned themselves on the cutting edge of internet television, as this was before brand-specific streaming services were made available. And some even think it might have just been WWE who gave some of these companies that idea. With Netflix and Hulu pretty much being catch-alls for entertainment and television, WWE was banking hard that there would be enough wrestling fans out there who would really take advantage of this. And it was projected that all they would need would be 1 million subscribers in order to break even. And while that is a far cry from the money-hungry WWE that we know, a mere million was all that they were targeting, remembering that Netflix itself took a long time before it turned profit. But alas, with that 1 million subscriber goal, after 3 months, WWE was at only a mere 667,000 subscribers. And these less than encouraging numbers caused WWE stock to fall 50% the following month. And also contributing to that was WWE's new deal with NBC Universal, which was nowhere near as lucrative as a lot of people thought it would have been. And so, after all that waiting and all that hype, it turns out that the WWE Network had failed. Or did it? Because if you know anything about WWE, they're gonna keep on trying, especially when they think they have a good idea, as they did in this case. And so, what were they gonna do to try and fix this? Well, they were gonna try and try again. In the following July, WWE offered another free preview week with the hope of still reaching 1 million subscribers by December. And while they did inch themselves up to 700,000 during that month, they were still a ways off. But still continuing to make moves, July also saw WWE announcing a 10-year distribution deal in Canada that would see the WWE Network as a premium television service. And they also announced that the WWE Network would be launching in a whole host of other countries on August 12th, and that there would be many more countries to follow. This would result in that time period where WWE kept showcasing all of their international commentators during pay-per-views. Additionally, a further hiccup would happen when the WWE announced that the network would be launching in the United Kingdom in October, as that would then get delayed till November, only for it to be postponed yet again a mere 20 minutes before its proposed launch. It would then actually become available in January of 2015, which by the way was the same month that WWE finally reached its goal of 1 million subscribers, with Vince McMahon himself saying that WWE would remain focused on delivering an outstanding value proposition for our fans by adding new content and new features in the coming year. The network would then expand even further, moving into the Middle East and North Africa as a premium service. Then, by that summer, with the continued growth of the network subscriber base, WWE stock began to rise, despite them still being slightly below their projected subscriber count. Then, after expanding into other countries such as India and Japan, WWE was able to announce in April of 2017 that they had reached over 1.9 million subscribers, although a fair few of them were using the WWE Network under the free preview, with only about 1.6 million actually paying, although that number would drop later on in the year to 1.5 million. Now, this dip would be seen as something that typically happened after WrestleMania and SummerSlam were over, with the last quarter of the year not being WWE's strongest. However, business would pick right back up again by WrestleMania season the following year, with WWE WWE seeing its highest numbers yet with 2.1 million subscribers and 1.8 million of those being paid. And these were the good times for the WWE Network, but unfortunately, things were about to switch gears. And sure, I know that the Peacock is mostly the same thing, but it's the little differences that really do make it aggravating, as you can't jump ahead to specific matches when watching a show, and that's if you can remember which season of SummerSlam you're trying to watch in the first place. But, as they say, unfortunately, good things weren't made to last. In January 2019, things start sounding a little more familiar, as the WWE Network switched from having BAMTech as their operating partner to having Endeavor Streaming instead. Now, it has been said that this decision was highly motivated by BAMTech being acquired by Disney, although WWE content is available on Disney Plus in certain countries. Anyway, the supposed thinking around this was that WWE was looking to get greater control over its operating services, and they were even contemplating running the whole thing by themselves, which again is pretty funny considering that Endeavor is now the owner of WWE. But nevertheless, in the summer of 2019, things would start changing up, as the network was revamping some of their user experiences, changing their browsing tools, and planning to add a download feature for offline viewing, not to mention also no longer supporting PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360. But then, the next major change would happen, of course, in March of 2020, as in order to try and make lockdown a bit more bearable, WWE allowed for a selection of their premium content and archive services to be free for a limited time. And they would also offer a free tier of the network that contained over 1,500 hours of content. And while the service was ad-free, there was talk of adding a tier that had limited commercial interruptions. And then the biggest change happened in January of 2021, when WWE announced that they would be partnering with NBC Universal for their brand new streaming service known as the Peacock, and that this would effectively close the WWE Network in the United States. And initially, not everything from the WWE Network had moved over to the Peacock, since NBC had to audit everything to be certain that it fit their high standards. Meanwhile, the WWE Network was still available outside of the United States, although that would begin to change, as the network services would move to other streaming brands, such as Disney Plus or Binge. And then most recently, in January of this year, WWE announced that they are partnering with Netflix, which will be the new home of Monday Night Raw. And as such, many people out there are anticipating that Netflix will also take on the rest of WWE's library once the deal with the Peacock is up. Now, whether this happens or whether it doesn't still remains to be seen. And even though it doesn't affect fans in the United States who haven't had access to the WWE Network for years, as well as many other countries who are also in the same boat, I still feel we should take the time to really appreciate the WWE Network for how great it really was, for the time period in which we had it. Well, there you go, the history of the WWE Network. Tell me, what are some of your favorite features? Let me know down in the comments, and please make sure that you subscribe to this channel and that you leave a big like, because this is for the thinking fans out there. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all my awesome Patreon supporters. And as always, Dave knows.